Madam Mayor, we are live and recording. You can begin whenever you wish.
Welcome, everyone. Before we begin tonight's council meeting, I actually just want to take a moment to briefly acknowledge our regular council meeting from March 3rd. Looking back, it's clear that we didn't uphold our usual standards when it comes to procedure and decorum in this chamber. And some of you weren't here necessarily to be part of that, but there were procedural issues and moments where the tone of the meeting didn't really reflect the way that we expect council business to be conducted. Council chambers should always be a place for respectful discussion and clear process. So that responsibility, of course, it belongs to all of us. It belongs to us, of course, as members of council, it belongs to staff, and it belongs to those attending in the gallery. So my commitment is that we can do better and we will be doing better. And moving forward, we'll ensure that our procedures are followed and that decorum is maintained so council can focus on the work that we're here to do for the community. So with that, we will begin. Just reminding everybody that the meeting itself is being recorded and live streamed for the Township's YouTube channel. Council, if there's any matter that you wish to speak on, please raise your hand and I will call on you at the appropriate time to speak. Of course, please also ensure that your microphone is on so that folks online can hear you as well. Just checking my note here, making sure I'm not missing any housekeeping items. So moving forward, we'll just call the roll, starting with Deputy Mayor Nelson. We have Councillor Watt, Councillor Johnston. Online, we have Councillor Landsman. Hello, you're on mute. I'm assuming your audio is working. And of course, myself, Heather Watson, and a number of staff are joining us who will be introduced at the appropriate time in the meeting, as well as some guests from Peterborough County. So with quorum of council in attendance, I will call the meeting to order. And we'll begin with the land acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that we are on lands which are part of the 1818 Treaty 20 and the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe bands of the Great Ojibwe Nation. We offer our gratitude to the Ojibwe for their care and knowledge of the lands on which we work, live, and enjoy. And may we honor and respect their teaching and our treaty obligations as we grow together. And we'll just pause for a moment of silent reflection, please. Okay. Council, the agenda was distributed to you in advance of today's meeting. I didn't see any disclosure of pecuniary interest come through up until this point, but if there is any disclosure, now would be the time to call that. Seeing nothing, just looking for an adoption of the agenda then, please. Deputy Mayor Nelson, seconded by Councillor Johnston, all in favor? And that motion carries. On to the adoption of the minutes and business arising from the minutes. We do have just the regular council meeting minutes from March 3rd. And I will ask the clerk just to give us an update on item 15.1, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to mention item 15.1 from our last meeting. I had made an error. So council had asked the process to waive the rules of procedure. I said it had to be a unanimous vote. It was actually a 2/3 majority vote that was needed. So I apologize for that mistake. And we're acknowledging it here so everyone knows the rules for next time that item comes up.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Council, we're just looking for a motion to receive and approve the minutes. Deputy Mayor Nelson, seconded by Councillor Watt. Any discussion? All in favor? And that carries. We do have a number of items sitting on the consent agenda. Council, is there anything that you would like to hold for discussion? Deputy Mayor, with your microphone, please.
Sorry, yeah, Madam Mayor. 7.2, if we could pull that for discussion.
Okay. And that will then move over onto correspondence as item number 12.4. We'll move that over for discussion.
Thank
Is
you.
there any other item that a member of council would like to hold for discussion? Seeing nothing further, just looking for a motion to receive the remaining correspondence items. Councillor Johnston? seconded by Councillor Landsman. All in favor? And that carries. Okay, so we are moving on to delegations, petitions, presentations, or public meetings. And we do have a public meeting, an official plan amendment for file number 15OP-20003 and a zoning bylaw amendment application for file R-02-20, planning 2026-08. The property is 804 Ironwood Drive. And we're just looking for a motion to go into the public meeting. Councillor Watt, seconded by Councillor Landsman, all in favor? And that carries. And we will turn it over to our planner, Ms. Fitzgerald, who I believe has some other folks to introduce as well.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, I'll just introduce those folks in a little bit after I've given some background on the file. Good evening, members of council, staff, and the public. Before council this evening is report planning 2026-08 concerning official plan amendment file 15OP-20003 and zoning bylaw amendment file R-02-20. These files were submitted concurrently to the County of Peterborough and the Township of Douro-Dummer by Landmark Associates Limited, now DM Wells Limited, on behalf of the owner, Jason Riel. The subject property is located within part of lots 10 and 11, concession 1 in the Dummer ward, and is municipally known as 804 Ironwood Drive. The official plan currently designates the majority of the subject property as Hamlet Special Policy Area 6.2.3.4 D1. The special policy area serves to limit the permitted uses to a golf course, driving range, golf clubhouse, and maintenance and storage facility, together with related accessory uses and buildings. The southwestern portion of the property is designated provincially significant wetland due to the presence of the Indian River Warsaw South wetland. The environmental constraint area overlay of the official plan, which corresponds to the limit of the floodplain, does also encompass much of the southern and eastern portions of the subject property. The property is currently zoned restricted open space 2, restricted commercial tourist 2, environmental conservation, and environmental conservation subcategory P. The restricted open space 2 zone permits a 9-hole golf course, excluding buildings and structures, as well as an accessory driving range. The commercial tourist 2 zone permits a golf clubhouse facility, together with related accessory buildings and structures, a parking area, as well as those uses permitted in the restricted open space 2 zone. The environmental conservation zone applies to portions of the property overlain by unevaluated wetlands, and the environmental conservation subcategory P zone corresponds to the provincially significant wetland feature in the southwestern portion of the property. The existing land use designation and zoning of the property are consistent with its former use as a 9-hole golf course. Based on information provided by the agent, the golf course opened in 2004 and operations were fully terminated by 2018. The property subsequently transferred into the current ownership. The owner is proposing to redevelop the former golf course for residential and small-scale industrial uses. More specifically, the owner wishes to construct a new single detached dwelling within the northwestern portion of the property, as well as to use the recently constructed building within the northeastern portion of the property to store materials and equipment associated with his contracting business. A pre-consultation meeting was hosted on April 8th, 2019 by the county and township at the request of the agent to discuss the proposed redevelopment, as well as the planning applications and information and technical studies required to be submitted in support of those applications. The official plan and zoning bylaw amendments were filed with the county and township on January 15th, 2020. The applications were accompanied by the following plans and technical studies. The preliminary concept plan prepared by Landmark Associates and DM Wells Limited. The planning justification report prepared by Landmark Associates Limited and DM Wells Limited. A scoped environmental impact study prepared by Oak Ridge Environmental Limited. A phase 1 environmental site assessment prepared by Oak Ridge Environmental Limited, as well as an archaeological assessment prepared by Northeastern Archaeological Associates. The applications were deemed complete by the county and township on February 18th and February 19th, 2020, respectively, and the notice of complete application was circulated on March 5th, 2020. After the complete applications were circulated, Autonomy Conservation undertook a technical review of the scoped environmental impact study and also provided comments with respect to natural hazards impacting the subject property. Orca generally concurred with the findings of the study, and the acceptable delineation of natural heritage and hydrologic features was further solidified through correspondence between Orca and Oak Ridge Environmental. Orca did identify that the subject property is impacted by flooding hazards associated with the Indian River and adjacent wetlands. However, the proposed development is not located within the flooding hazard. Given that the property is partially within Orca's regulated area, permits from Orca are required prior to any construction renovations or site alteration. At the same time, the Phase 1 environmental site assessment was sent for peer review by a third-party consultant. The peer reviewer did not agree with some of the findings of the report and indicated the requirement for the completion of a Phase 2 environmental site assessment before filing a record of site condition with the province due to the identification of a potentially contaminating activity on the northern adjacent property. In response, a scoped Phase 2 environmental site assessment was prepared by Oak Ridge Environmental. Minimal soil contamination was observed, and according to Oak Ridge Environmental, there appears to be no active source of contamination, and it is anticipated that the contamination will be naturally attenuated over time. No sensitive land uses are proposed to be established within this portion of the property where the contamination was observed. Based on guidance from MECP staff, the county and township agreed with Oak Ridge Environmental's proposal to file a record of site condition based on the Phase 1 environmental site assessment for the portion of the property to be developed for residential use. The record of site condition was filed on April 17th, 2025. Also, during the course of application review and circulation, the site plan agreement, which was registered on title, which pertains to the former golf course, has since been removed. Notice of the public meeting was circulated on February 25th, 2026. The township circulated the notice via regular mail to all landowners within 120-meter radius of the subject property. A notice was posted at the entrance of the property from Ironwood Drive, and the notice was also posted on the township's website. Township staff have undertaken a preliminary review of the consistency of the applications with the provincial planning statement, as well as conformity with the official plan and zoning bylaw. Under the provincial planning statement, the subject property is within the rural area, more specifically the rural settlement area of Warsaw. The PPS provides that settlement areas shall be the focus of growth and development. Settlement areas are to achieve densities and a mix of land uses, which represent an efficient use of land resources and infrastructure. For rural settlement areas, consideration shall be given to locally appropriate rural characteristics, the scale of development, and the provision of appropriate local services. The proposed redevelopment will allow for modest growth within the settlement area of Warsaw, as is directed by provincial policy, in a location which respects the on-site environmental constraints and at a scale and density which is consistent with development on surrounding properties. Policies of the PPS also impose restriction on development within and adjacent to certain natural heritage features. The constraints mapping, which was completed as part of the scoped environmental impact study, does demonstrate that all proposed development will be located outside of set natural heritage features and their buffers. The proposed amendments will also ensure the long-term protection of these features. Regarding natural hazards, Orca has confirmed that their comments on the previous resubmission of the applications remain valid. The subject property is impacted by a flooding hazard associated with the Indian River and the adjacent wetlands. However, all development is located outside of the flooding hazard. The applications therefore appear to be consistent with the provincial planning statement. As previously noted, the subject property is currently designated Hamlet Special Policy Area 6.2.3.4 D1 and provincially significant wetland under the official plan. The special policy area, again, does scope those permitted uses to those which are associated with the golf course use, and development and site alteration are generally prohibited in the provincially significant wetland designation. The official plan amendment proposes to change the land use designation on the portion of the property from the Hamlet Special Policy Area to the Hamlet designation and the Environmental Constraint Area designation. The extent and configuration of the Environmental Constraint Area designation will reflect the findings of the scoped environmental impact study. Similar to the PPS, the official plan also directs new growth and development to hamlet areas. The hamlet designation permits residential development in the form of single detached dwellings, as well as small-scale commercial and industrial uses, which serve the outlying rural and agricultural areas, provided that land use compatibility conflicts will be avoided or otherwise appropriately mitigated. New commercial and industrial uses may be established in the hamlet area through an amendment to the zoning bylaw, provided that official plan criteria for assessing these types of development are met. In the environmental constraint area designation, development and site alteration are generally prohibited unless required for flood erosion and siltation control. Again, all existing and proposed development will continue to be located outside of the environmental constraint area designation. The proposed development does align with the intended development pattern of the official plan and will maintain the rural character of the Warsaw settlement area. The proposed contractor's yard use will be limited in scale and its operations are not anticipated to result in adverse impacts to adjacent properties. Land use compatibility matters will be further addressed through site plan control. The environmental site assessment reports also demonstrate that there's no hazards on the portion of the property to be developed for residential use. And the extent of the property designated the environmental constraint area, which does again limit the permitted development and site alteration, will be substantially increased in accordance with the findings of the scoped environmental impact study. The applications therefore appear to conform to the official plan. As previously noted, the subject property is currently zoned restricted open space 2, restricted commercial tourist 2, environmental conservation, and environmental conservation subcategory P. The former two zone categories do relate to the previous use of the property as a golf course. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment requests to rezone certain portions of the property from the open space 2 zone to the hamlet residential zone to permit the development of the single detached dwelling. The proposed dwelling will meet all applicable regulations of the hamlet residential zone. A portion of the property currently zoned the restricted commercial tourist 2 zone is proposed to be rezoned to the Special District 266 holding zone to permit a contractor's yard. The Special District zone will also introduce site-specific regulations for the contractor's yard, including reduced lot frontage, reduced interior side yard and rear yard setbacks, reduced minimum driveway separation from the boundary of a residential zone, and reduced planting strip width along an interior side lot line which abuts a residential zone. A holding provision will be placed on this zone category to require the owner to enter into a site plan agreement with the township. Other portions of the property which are currently zoned to permit the golf course use will be rezoned to the environmental conservation zone to recognize and protect the identified natural heritage features and natural hazards as delineated through the scoped environmental impact study. The environmental conservation subcategory P zone relating to the provincially significant wetland is not subject to change through these applications. Given that the zoning bylaw is required to conform to the official plan, the proposed zoning bylaw amendment will not conform to the official plan until such a time as the official plan amendment is approved by County Council. Now, in just a moment, I will ask Melanie Menon, planner for the County of Peterborough, to speak to the giving of notice for the official plan amendment application, any and all agency comments which have been received to date, as well as next steps in the OPA approval process. But first, I did just want to acknowledge that the township did receive 2 submissions from members of the public. The first submission was received from Mark and Kelly Remmer, Nigel and Jean MacArthur, and Doug and Marcel Mundell on April 4th, 2020. And this was in response to the notice of complete application, which was formerly circulated. So for council's benefit, I'll just read those aloud as they were sent in. We are advising that we are in opposition to amending the areas of lands in question to residential development within the previously owned Ironwoods Golf Course. As a suggestion of development within the hamlet is not a reasonable request within a watershed area, and ecological conservation lands are to be preserved as currently designated as outlined in your recent letter regarding the application to change the zoning is unacceptable. The previous landowner was denied a building permit and was denied a septic permit, being for the fact that the subject conservation protected area is 210 feet above sea level based on geographical mapping, hence no permit. So the previous structure was moved to meet the guidelines and built 230 feet above sea level. The subject land was then subdivided for sale and communicated that there is no opportunity to build within this floodplain as per Ontario Conservation, so local interest diminished. As no opportunity was available for permits. So what's changed? I don't think the sea level. We understand as a new owner that they have purchased the property and is trying to the same as the previous owner, yet the sea level did not change. Since this is in the hamlet and all concerned constitutes the development of the property, should be the same as the last ruling. So how could this possibly be approved as nothing has changed? The zoning should remain as it is to prevent a precedent-setting action. This is actually a floodplain, and there has been changes to the previously mapped grade area, identifying such. Not sure what year that took place, or if there are any records on file to identify who was notified at that date. The hamlet to amend for a development would not even be morally or ethically right, placing waste in a risk area, floodplain to have a development, placing multiple dwellings within are best left to preserve for future green space. The hamlet is in a protected status of conservation and is not to be amended to residential development. The second submission was received from Kyle and Lindsay McCrum, Marcel and Doug Mundell, Nigel and Jean MacArthur, Mark and Kelly Remmer, and Alex Kidd recently on March 16th, 2026, which states that the proposed rezoning amendment to remove the wetland designation concerned constituents of the impacts to this floodplain. Potential impacts to the environment of a suggested construction area on this land or residential build. Storage of leaking equipment parked on wetland soils. Permeable soil is present, thusly heading to the river as water is at a 0.6 meter depth based on Oak Ridge environmental study. Residential waste system within a wetland, again, permeable soil mixing waste within the water table. Flooding water from all the existing ditch system up Paine Line on both sides of the road traveled down Ironwoods to filter onto these lands to the river. Entering into Warsaw on County Road 4 on the top of the hill, all the way down to the south side of the road. All water travels downhill to these lands as well to filter prior to entering the river. The spring water veins within this hill leak all summer. The previous owner was denied building in this floodplain, had to construct a movable portable clubhouse and then have it moved uphill to meet the standard requirement to place on a foundation at acceptable land height to place a septic system for his home, thusly allowing for the proper drainage and filtering required. With respect to the Oak Ridge environmental study, identifies it is expected the river traverses and flows within the bedrock. The dominant shallow soils are highly permeable. Shallow groundwater data indicate the presence of a shallow water table condition, 0.6 meters below ground level, and a connection between shallow groundwater and the river. The previous owner was still expected to implement a monitoring program as part of the municipal requirement, even though no development increased within the golf course. A video of the water run in the spring is available. Those are all the public comments that were received by the township. With that, I will turn things over to Melanie. And myself, Melanie, and Marnie Saunders, who's the agent for the owner, will be available afterwards to answer any questions or respond to any comments that the council or the public may have.
Hello, Melanie. How are you? Welcome. Not sure
Thank
if you're
you.
wanting to add anything at this point.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of council. Emily has done a very thorough review of the application, so I'll briefly summarize the proposed official plan amendment, but
Melanie, I'm sorry to interrupt you. We're having a hard time hearing your audio in the chambers. I don't know if it's your proximity to the microphone or your
I'll
volume.
turn
I would
my
ask that
volume.
you perhaps give that a check.
Is that any better? Turned up my volume.
We're just checking on this end too to see if there's
Okay.
anything that we can do. Everything's up on our side.
Okay, I'll speak louder. That will help. My name is Melanie Menon. I'm a planner with the county. I'm here today because the County of Peterborough is the approval authority for amendments to the county official plan, and the township is part of the local component of the county official plan. I was going to introduce the virtual attendance of the county's public hearing representative on planning matters, who is Jim Whalen, Deputy Mayor of North Kawartha. I don't see him online. Is he there in person by chance?
No, he's not here in person.
Okay, all right, that's unusual. So I'll proceed anyway. He'll be able to see this afterwards. The Planning Act requires that at least one public meeting be held for official plan and zoning bylaw amendments in order to provide the public with information on the proposal and to seek public input. As Emily noted, a joint county and township notice was mailed to all owners within 120 meters of the subject lands, and a sign was posted on the property advertising the public meeting as per the requirements of the Planning Act. Additionally, the notice was placed in the Examiner online and is available on the county and township websites. The purpose of the official plan amendment application, as you heard, is to change the current land use designations in order to permit a dwelling and recognize a contractor's yard on separate portions of the property. Part of the lands are designated with a site-specific hamlet designation permitting the former golf course use, while the majority of the site is designated environmental constraint and provincially significant wetlands, both of which prohibit development. The proposed amendment would remove the site-specific hamlet designation for a golf course and replace it with a hamlet designation on its own in order to permit the proposed uses. The remainder of the site would remain designated as environmental constraint and provincially significant wetlands. In support of the application, the applicant provided a number of reports and studies as mentioned by Emily. The applications were circulated to the required agencies and peer reviewers for their input. Comments were received from Enbridge Gas, Kawartha Pine Ridge School Board, County Public Works, and Curve Lake First Nation, all of which had no comments or concerns. Alderville First Nations requested an archaeological assessment and further consultation. And county staff note that an archaeological assessment was provided by the applicant and registered with the province. Orca reviewed the proposal against its provincial mandate and concluded that the subject property is impacted by a known flooding hazard. However, the area of proposed change in designation and land use are outside the hazard. Further, Orca supports the recommendations of the environmental study to limit development to a specified location on the site where it will have no impact to the existing natural areas nor the Indian River floodplain. Further, Orca has requested an erosion and settlement control plan to be required at the time of Orca permitting to address grading and pollution. Lastly, formal comments are required from the township, and we anticipate those will be forwarded to the county with any requested conditions after this statutory public meeting today. Emily noted the letters of concern from neighboring property owners which have been received. And in terms of policy considerations, staff for the county and township are responsible for reviewing the applications to ensure that the proposal is in conformity with the county official plan, the local component of the county plan, and is consistent with the provincial policy statement. As well, we consider any public input that is received as part of the process. So in terms of next steps, the county is looking to Township Council for a recommendation on the official plan amendment. Once we receive that, staff will prepare a planning report for County Council's consideration with a recommendation regarding the proposal. When County Council has made a decision, a notice of decision will be provided in accordance with the Planning Act. The decision will be final if there are no appeals within the 20-day appeal period. And lastly, I would note that if anyone here wishes to receive a notice of the decision for this application, I would ask that a request be made in writing to the County Planning Department. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Fitzgerald, are you done your portion of the report before I ask if any comment from the agents?
Through you, Madam Mayor, would you like the recommendation read out?
Sure. I mean, we have the recommendation before us, but if you want for the people in the gallery and watching online.
Sure. So the recommendation associated with Report Planning 2026-08 is that the report dated March 17th, 2026 regarding official plan amendment file 15OP-20003 and zoning bylaw amendment file R02-20 be received, and that council receive all comments related to files 15OP-20003 and R-02-20, and that council directs staff to advise the County of Peterborough that, provided the County of Peterborough Planning Department recommends the approval of official plan amendment file 15OP-20003 to County Council, the Township of Douro-Dummer supports proposed official plan amendment, which represents amendment number 59 to the county official plan, and further that council defer a decision on zoning bylaw amendment file R02-20 until such a time as the County of Peterborough has made a decision on official plan amendment file 15OP-20003.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's the recommendation, and I believe the agent of the owner is also present online. She may wish to speak further to the application.
Wonderful. Thank you. The agent, I believe, was referenced as Marie Saunders. Is that correct?
Through you, Madam Mayor, Marnie Saunders.
Marnie, I'm sorry. Did you want to add anything to the discussion at this point in time, Ms. Saunders?
Yes, if you don't mind. Good evening, members of council, staff, and members of the public. My name is Marnie Saunders. I'm a land use planner with DM Wills, and I am acting as the applicant on behalf of the owner of 804 Ironwood Drive with respect to the official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment subject to tonight's public meeting. I'd just like to take an opportunity to thank staff both at the county and the township for their assistance with this application and their thorough summary of the applications during tonight's public meeting. As staff have already detailed, the official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment are intended to remove the permissions of the golf course on the subject property and allow for the residential land use and site-specific industrial land use of the contractor's yard. We did hear some of the concerns from the public, and I just wanted to kind of touch on some of those comments that were received. Mainly related to the floodplain issues, some drainage issues, contamination issues, and some ecological protection issues. Without reiterating too much of what staff have already explained this evening, is that there's no proposed development within those within the floodplain hazard area. Further, the natural hazards or natural features that have been identified on site will be contained within the environmental conservation zoning and designation, and there's also no development within those areas. With respect to drainage and stormwater management concerns, as already mentioned during this evening's public meeting, the drainage, stormwater management, and any erosion sediment control issues will be addressed through ORCA permitting and building permits if and when there is any future development on the property. And lastly, with regard to the contaminated or the contamination that was identified through the phase 2 environmental site assessment, there is no proposed development of any sensitive land uses within that area. And as staff have already indicated, that record of site condition has been registered with the ministry for the area where the residential development is proposed. So to conclude, we also feel that these applications are both consistent and conform with the provincial policy statement, the official plan, and the township zoning bylaw. If there's any further questions from members of the public this evening or members of council, I'd be happy to answer any of those this evening or provide any additional information that may be required following the public meeting tonight.
Thank you for that, Ms. Saunders. Before I open up the floor for comments from the public, I just want to check in with council. Are there any questions from any of the parties that we've heard from thus far about this? Councillor Watt.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. And I'm not even sure whether we can answer this question here tonight, but it was brought up, I think, Emily, in your report that, or maybe it was, sorry, maybe the Remmer's letter, that the previous owner was denied because of septic and everything else. Is there anything you can comment on that, or is it even in the same spot that, in the same area that they were proposing, or that one kind of confuses me?
Who would like to take that one? Mrs. Joe?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. That's not something that's particularly relevant to the applications that are at hand. It would require quite a lot of background information. Again, I'm not sure exactly the context of those comments. They were made prior to my employment with the township. So unfortunately, it's not something that can be answered for you this evening.
Any other questions before I open the floor? Seeing nothing further, are there any comments from the public in person or online? I'll open up the floor for that in the gallery, but I'll just check with the clerk. Nobody's online. Okay, thank you. So is anybody here today who wishes to speak in support of or against the application that's before us? Sir, if I could ask you to just, it's because it's a public meeting, we do need your name for the record. I'm sorry? Mark Memory, okay. Okay, I'm being asked if you could please say that into the microphone and we'll get you some help with getting that turned on.
Hi, my name is Bremer. Just in comment of the previous owner at the clubhouse, it had to be placed on wheels and mobile. It could not be a fixed ground based on the restrictions he was put on it. And then to wind the golf course down because he was not allowed to spray any chemicals throughout that wetlands, which is where they're actually applying for change to residential. So with the restrictions upon his weeds grew, the golf course did not flourish. He then was requested to move the clubhouse to where it is now Alex Kidd's premises because he was not allowed a permit, which is about 100 yards from where they're looking to rezone to residential. It doesn't sound like a expectation that a 15-acre rezoning is for residents. It sounds like it's setting the stage for future development with that area of where it says the water from the river transverses on the block underneath the land. So that means there's going to be one large pile of fill must have to put in to filter septics and all that kind of situation. And understandably, they have those chemicals and those, sands or whatever to do that. But then that's allowing the changing of the zoning residential, so you can call weed man and have them come out and start spraying there. And then transversely, where does that water flow? It's got to go downhill. It is the river basin of the whole hamlet, probably the lowest sea level within the hamlet, possibly. I think that's basically my thoughts, but either way it goes is how it goes. I'm just stating what my thoughts are. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Remmer. I appreciate your comments. Are there any other comments from the gallery in support of or against the application that we're hearing today? And one final call, Madam Clerk, I'll get you to just double check online. Is there anybody joining us who may wish to share their thoughts? No? Okay. Seeing nothing further, council, we just need a motion then to, so I'm just going through my notes here, to close the public meeting. Deputy Mayor Nelson, Councillor Johnston, all in favor? That carries. And then, looking for a resolution from council on this. You're going back looking for the recommended resolution in the report. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thanks, Emily, for all your hard work and your report. I think it's pretty comprehensive, and I believe we've definitely had enough people, experts, looking at this to definitely go along with your recommendation. So without any further ado, I'd like to move that we follow the recommendation.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Does anyone wish to second that? Councillor Johnson, but with your microphone, please.
I'll accept it, but I want the recommendation to be read out.
Ms. Fitzgerald, do you want to reread the recommendation, please?
Absolutely. That the report planning 2026-08 dated March 17th, 2026 regarding official plan amendment file 15OP-20003 and zoning bylaw amendment file R-02-20 be received, and that council receive all comments related to files 15OP-20003 and R-02-20, and that council direct staff to advise the County of Peterborough that, provided the County of Peterborough Planning Department recommends the approval of official plan amendment 15OP-20003 to County Council, that the Township of Douro-Dummer supports proposed official plan amendment file 15OP-20003, which represents amendment number 59 to the county official plan, and that council defer a decision on zoning bylaw amendment file R-02-20 until such a time as the County of Peterborough has made a decision on official plan amendment file 15OP-20003.
Thank you, Ms. Fitzgerald. Councillor Johnston, are you still okay with that, seconding that motion?
Yep.
Okay, so we have a mover and a shaker, as I like to say. Is there any discussion on the motion that's before you? Seeing nothing further, I will call for the vote. All in favor? And that motion carries. Okay, so we don't have a bylaw on the agenda because it's got to go through back over to the county, but we'll move on then to, we have a presentation from MPP Dave Smith. And it says provincial budget discussion and updates. We've already ascertained that there's, you're not coming bearing gifts to this particular meeting, although you have very recently. Over to you, MPP Smith.
Thanks, Mayor. I appreciate that. Yes, the Ontario budget is going to be released on March the 26th. And I'm happy to say that there are things in it that I'm allowed to talk about. You will see some graphs, some graphics, and a lot of numbers. Nothing more that I can talk about, directly on that. But when we take a look at it, if we look back at history, history is always a good indicator of what the future is going to hold. And our previous budgets, we have focused on a lot of infrastructure related items. We have focused on doing things that make it easier for people to live in Ontario. There are going to be some people who say that, no, we haven't focused on the right things. But I think it would be safe to say that this budget is going to continue a lot of the work that we have done. And with that, when we look back at this past year with some of the funding that has come to Douro-Dummer, in particular, the $1 million for the Douro Community Center to do some upgrades on that, I think that bodes well for what types of things there could be in the budget as we move forward. The OSIF funding for Douro-Dummer also increased. We raised the floor to 125,000. So Douro-Dummer received 125,000. It is based somewhat on population base. There was also just recently 300,000, just a shade over 300,000 for emergency expenses related to the ice storm. Now, that is a reimbursement of what you have spent. It's not that that money is going to be, I want to make it clear to people who are watching online or here in the audience. That is not new money. That is money that Douro-Dummer actually spent as part of the cleanup. And it is to make you as whole as possible on it. I've had some people ask, why has that funding come now when the ice storm was a year ago? And it's because it is a reimbursement for the expenses. What the general public doesn't always recognize is that there is a time delay. And I'll give a perfect example of it. The Bensford Road landfill, if you had green waste for a period of time after the ice storm, there was no tipping fee. Each of the townships had depots as well in Peterborough County, as well as the county office just up the street, basically. And there was a significant amount of green waste that came in. That didn't end at that point. There is the cleanup of that afterwards. And it was, in all likelihood, close to 6 months before all of that green waste was chipped and disposed of appropriately. You wouldn't have known what those expenses would have been had we said to you the week after the storm, tell us how much money you need and we'll make you whole at that point. So there is that time delay. There were also other things that occurred as a result of the ice storm, where there was equipment that probably would have had a longer lifespan had it not been put into so much use across Ontario. And I'll use chippers again as an example. Those 10-inch chippers, they're industrial chippers. They last a long time. But when you're running it 8 or 10 hours a day straight for 6 months, that's putting a significant wear on it. And that was encapsulated with some of the expenses. And we had different municipalities that were able to get their total sooner than others. We didn't want to make the announcement for, let's say, Douro-Dummer was able to get everything in early, but Havelock or North Corthel was not. We didn't want to make an announcement for one township and have the others then question when were they going to get their money? Why weren't they hearing about their money when we had a number of municipalities across all of Ontario that were all in that same boat? So that's why that announcement came out about a week and a half or 2 weeks ago. But ultimately it was 300,000. Now, what does that mean for the residential taxpayer, though? And I like to put things in perspective for the average person who's paying the bill for the municipality. A 1% tax increase for Douro-Dummer is around 50,000. A $300,000 bill then would have been a 6% property tax increase if you had to foot the bill yourself. The $1 million for the Douro Arena would have been a 20% tax increase had you had to foot the bill yourself. So the province is stepping up and trying to be that good partner with each of those communities. And I know that there's some challenges around it, and I'll use a very specific example. I sit on the Standing Committee on Finance and Economic Affairs, and I use our riding frequently when we're discussing things because I'm dealing with a lot of members from the Toronto area. And in particular, one member from one of the Toronto ridings has 17,400 people per square kilometer. I'm going to use North Kawartha because they're a little smaller in terms of population and a little bit bigger than Douro-Dummer. They have 3.6 people per square kilometer. And the Toronto members are always talking about we need to do things per capita, per capita, per capita. Well, funding going to a community that has 17,000 people per square kilometer would be significantly higher than funding going to North Kawartha at 3.6 or Douro-Dummer at around 5 people per square kilometer. So we can't be looking at it that way. We have to take a look at what it is that each of the communities have. And that's why you saw the increase in the OSIF funding, the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund, because we recognize that a location like Douro-Dummer, that's around 600 square kilometers. You have a lot of roads to cover that, but you don't have a lot of people to bear that expense. And when we look at how do we do something from the provincial level, we can't look at what is equal. We have to look at what's equitable and what's fair. And that's why you're seeing some increased funding that to some of the smaller communities. And we heard that when we were doing our budget pre-consultations. We actually had almost 1,100 individuals who came to the Standing Committee on Finance and Economic Affairs, as well as the Ministry of Finance budget pre-consultations. I like to refer to those as speed dating. You have 3 minutes to get your pitch in, and there's no questions that get asked. You just have 3 minutes. We also had 12,000 submissions online. We heard what people were saying. We know that we're going into some tougher economic times because of things that is happening down in the United States. There are 3 budgets that have been released so far from other provinces. I'll start with Nova Scotia. They have a budget deficit this year of about 1.6 billion. Next came Alberta. To put it in perspective, Ontario population is 20 times the size of Nova Scotia. Alberta came in next at 9.5 billion for their deficit. Ontario is about 5 times the size of Alberta. And British Columbia came in at $13.2 billion for their deficit this year. Ontario is about 3.5 times the size. So if our budget has a deficit less than 40 billion, proportionately, we're doing much better than all those other provinces. And I can guarantee you that our budget will have significantly less than a $40 billion deficit. The Premier likes to say that Peter Bethlenfalvy, the Minister of Finance, is tighter than the skin on a grape. And I can assure you that he has been very diligent in ensuring that the money that Ontario is spending is going to be spent in some of the most appropriate ways. And with that, we have made some changes to some of our programs. We're embarking on a process now where we're reviewing all of the programs that we have. Obviously, we'll start with some of the bigger ticket items to make sure that they're accomplishing what they should. And I say this because you will have seen yesterday that we announced that all of the CTS injection sites and overdose prevention sites in Ontario will be winding down. They will no longer receive provincial funding. The one in Peterborough will have 90 days to wind down their operations, and anything that is not related to consumption or injection, they have an opportunity then to transition that to a different service within the community. We are going through that process right now, working with Forecast on it. The reason that we've done that is we were spending about $35 million on overdose prevention, injection sites, and consumption and treatment sites. And there are 3 different models. But in 2024, we only had 711 unique users. If I pivot, and this is purely hypothetical, but if I were to take that $35 million and I was to invest that in involuntary, so forced detox and rehab, I'm not saying we're going to do that. I'm using this as an example of how the money could be used and how it might be a better use of the money. 9,300 people would have gone through detox and rehab had we spent 35 million for that and forced people to go. Worldwide statistics, 15% of the people who are forced into detox and rehab are successful. 15% of 9,300 is about 1,300 people. So effectively, with that 35 million, I could have saved twice as many people's lives. And when we look at things, we have to look then at what the key performance indicators are. Is something accomplishing what we set out to do? And if it's not, is that the most effective use of the money? And should that money then be transitioned to something else that would be more effective? I will freely admit, I am the one who found the funding for the consumption and treatment site. I was given assurances by a large number of people that this would reduce the number of overdose deaths in our community if we did that. 2 years prior to opening the CTS, we had 42 overdose deaths. The year that we opened the CTS, we had 45. The very first year it operated, we had 54. Last year we had 78. We're on track for 72 this year. I would say that the consumption and treatment site didn't meet those performance indicators, that we were not able to save more people's lives as a result of it. Now, I do recognize that that's not to say that every person who died was using the CTS, and that's not to say that we didn't save someone's life as a result of it. But when we look at how money is being spent, we have to look at what is the best use of it, what is the greater good. And I think that when you look across all of Ontario, the consumption and treatment sites, the injection sites, and the overdose prevention sites, perhaps were not as effective. And what we need to be doing is focusing more then on detox, on rehab, on building towards sobriety. I'm not an expert. I will freely admit that. But I think that most people would say that if you're building to sobriety, you're going to live a better life than if you continue using some form of an illicit drug. With that, I will stop talking and I will open it up to the floor for any questions. I'm happy to answer anything that anyone may. If there's something that I'm not allowed to say, then the answer will be I'm just happy to serve the people of Ontario in any capacity the Premier Ford sees fit.
Yeah, to the chair. Thanks, Dave. You mentioned that 300,000 that we were getting back, and that's appreciated because bottom line, as you were saying, it saves us taking it from the taxpayer. Now, the question from some taxpayers is that that's fine. They appreciate that. But what did they get? Who came to help them? Now, I do know they could drop the brush off, and not everybody's got a vehicle or a trailer or whatever to drop the brush off. and what's in their fields and things that where they work, they had a lot of destruction. Anyway, maybe you could comment on that to anybody who's listening, to how the individual person was treated from Ontario.
Whenever there's any kind of a disaster, there's something that we have to take a step back and look at what worked, what didn't work, and how do we make adjustments. And as a result of the ice storm and some of the things that we saw from it, prior to it, we had started with something called the Ontario Corps, and that was having more volunteers that were involved for these types of emergencies. We did have a number of those groups come into this area. The Rubicon group in particular was here for a few days helping with it. We also had a group from a Mennonite community who came in to help. We weren't able to get to all residents with them, but building on that and the lessons that we've learned from that, we've actually added now to the Ontario Corps. Most recently, there have been two organizations, Labatt Brewing in particular has stepped forward and has joined the Ontario Corps, and they're prepared in the next emergency then to have some of the Labatt employees continue to receive their pay if they are willing to come into communities that have had some kind of an emergency to volunteer to help with the cleanup. The other one is the Ontario Mining Association has also stepped up, and the mining industry will have people who will come anywhere in Ontario when we have an emergency like that. So we've taken those lessons that we've learned from that event and we've been able to add on to it so that the next time something like this occurs, we're in a much better place for it. I know that that doesn't help the average person who got stuck doing the cleanup themselves and perhaps had to transport some of the material to the dump or had to get rid of it themselves. And I completely appreciate that. I lost 72 trees on my property on it. I still have about 30 that I haven't been able to clean up yet. It doesn't help those individuals for what happened then. But we have taken the lessons from that to make sure that we're in a better position for the next time something like this happens. And I know that's not a consolation for a lot of people, and I do apologize for that.
Councillor Watt, over to you.
Thank you very much, Dave. And Douro-Dummer does appreciate everything that we get. Like every penny helps, as you said, alleviate from the taxpayers' bill. So I got, but I really want to thank you very much for the arena money because our two arenas, which we use a lot, they were built for our kids and our future generations. And you know what, without that money, we'd have been struggling to try and keep that new arena open for a year or two, you know, till we could come up with the funding, or we were gonna have to borrow it at a cost. And, you know, I just want to say thank you, and we do appreciate everything you do for us.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Through the chair. Thanks again, Dave. I know, I've heard people say, what about, as Councillor Johnson has said, what about me? I lost a lot of trees on my property as well. I personally don't expect the government to come and pay me or do anything for me. I as a property owner, that's my responsibility. And I do appreciate the government stepping forward, the provincial government stepping forward, and at least me not having to pay double for that cleanup, not only in my township, but I had a loss as well. But I think it's like this. It's very much appreciated from that the provincial government has recognized all of us smaller municipalities and able to give us some money to lessen the burden for our taxpayers. So thank you for that, Dave.
On that note, Douro-Dummer is one of the townships that does take advantage of a program that the government does have to reforest. And that is, for anyone who's paying attention, in around June or July, Douro-Dummer will come out and say that you can get certain trees for a very, very, very reasonable price. I believe it was $25 this past year. That is subsidized by the federal or by the provincial government. And after the storm this year or last year, we actually added to the number of or the type of tree that would be available as part of that, because we recognize that some of the canopy that was lost in this area in particular was not part of the types of trees that were available. So we added a few extra types of trees to it. So a $25 cost to put in a silver maple or a red maple or a birch tree or a couple of different spruce trees that they had, as well as a fir. I don't think that's a big hardship for most people who wanted an inexpensive way then to replace some of that canopy. Now, there was a limit of about 5 trees. So if you're like me and lost close to 100, it's probably a lifetime before you get them all replanted that way. But it is one way that that we've stepped up to try and make it easier for those who wanted to do that.
And MPP, that's just to differentiate from the program that we ran using, a similar program that we ran using, like to augment that taxpayer, Douro-Dummer taxpayer money to
Yes.
run in the past as well. Councillor Landsman.
Thank you. Through you to Mr. Smith. This morning, I happened to notice on the news the comment that the Premier made to do with the direction of the Alto high-speed train. And he seemed to indicate that it would be best going along the 401. Do you have any further information or comments on that?
I haven't spoken directly to the Premier about this. There hasn't been any conversation in caucus about it, so I'm not sure where it came from. What I'll say is I've had a number of people who've reached out to me about it, and I will say this about Douro-Dummer Council as well. This is a federal program. It is designed 100% by the federal government. Although we are elected to represent the people, we have no influence on what the federal government does. So from my perspective on it, I am simply a constituent on the federal side, and I've had my say with our federal representative on what I think we should be doing on it. One of the things that that hasn't been brought up as part of it, and I think that it should be part of the discussion. We have an existing rail line right now that is freight and freight only. It is not in the greatest of condition. If we go back to 2004, the Shining Waters Railway was looking at putting or rebuilding that track, putting in passenger rail. They had gone down the path up until about 2021, 2022 to have high frequency rail. They would use that rail bed, they would twin it. That would extend the life for our our freight system as well. And I think that as much as we have been having conversation about high-speed rail, I think we need to continue having the conversation about the existing rail line and ensure that we don't lose that freight capacity. We do have industry that does rely on it. I'll use Quaker Oats as a perfect example in Peterborough. All of their raw materials come in by train because of the volume and the weight. The Cordova mines north of Havelock, all of their product leaves on train, again, because of the volume and the weight. And I think that any conversation that we have, whether it be high-speed rail or high-frequency rail, I think we also need to be including a conversation around the existing tracks and the freight capacity, the fact that they can only travel at 15 kilometers an hour in certain sections, and that the lifespan of that track is beginning to reach the end of its natural life. When I was first elected in 2018, there was an estimate that we had 10 to 12 years left of that. That would put us at about 2030. And I think that the federal government needs to be taking a look at that as well. And they need to ensure that whatever they do as they move forward, they take into account that smaller communities do rely on that freight system, and they do rely on those jobs. Just using the Cordova mine as a perfect example, the Uniman mines, some people may remember it as, that is a major employer in Havelock. Havelock is, the town is about 1,300 people. The entire township is about 5,000 people. Losing the ability to have an employer of that size in that community would be absolutely devastating. And I think that whatever conversation there is around the high-speed rail, we also need to continue having the conversation around the freight system and the existing rail lines.
Thank you.
Neither is going to affect me personally, whether we have high speed or not, whether we have high frequency or not. It's probably not going to affect me personally. And as I said, I am just a federal constituent like you guys are. I know that you have had different groups who've reached out to council wanting you to weigh in on it. But I would remind everyone that you as council, although you're elected to deal with municipal issues, and you have no sway over what the federal government does. If you're concerned about the high-speed rail, if you're in favor of it or you're opposed to it, doesn't make any difference. Reach out to the federal members, because it is the federal government and the federal members that will be the only ones who have any actual input in it. We've had people who have asked, could we comment on the interactive map? In my experience, it's not likely that the individual federal members will look at the comments on the interactive map. Alto may, so by all means comment that way. But if you feel passionate about it either way, you need to reach out to the federal member. You need to reach out to all of the federal members on the proposed rail line and express your views that way. That's the only way that your opinion is going to be taken into account.
Thank you.
Thank you, MPP. Any other questions of our MPP before I jump in with a quick one? I do want to comment, MPP, about your reference to the ice storm funding, and as my colleague had referenced, of course, we do appreciate any funding that the province has for Douro-Dummer Township, whether it be for the Douro Arena or the OSA funding or the more recent ice storm. You recommend, like, why does it take like it's basically been a year since since the event, the horrible event, and you made the announcement. I will say it may seem slow for the reasons that you've explained, but the province was quick to respond. You were quick to respond in reaching out to myself, and the premier reached out to me by way of phone call, I think within 24 hours after the storm, and then within days after the storm, the premier came, Minister Dunlop came, who is now heading up that court, as you were mentioning earlier. So you were quick to respond to be on the ground in the time of need. And while the premier was here, it was at that time that he assured us that we would be taken care of. And obviously it takes time to go through the application process and make sure all the bills are in and all that stuff. But you may have been slow to announce it, but you were quick to respond, and I just want to thank you for that. The question I have, and I'm going to probably get the wording incorrect, and I don't ever want to put words in your mouth. You were at County Council just 2 weeks ago and made a similar presentation, announced the funding. You had referenced something in your remarks about municipalities focusing on green initiatives shouldn't necessarily be their key focus. I'm paraphrasing loosely here. I hope you recall. I'm wondering if you can perhaps speak to that as it relates to Douro-Dummer specifically. I'm not sure if you were referring to projects within our municipality, within the county, or beyond. But what did you mean by that? Perhaps you can clarify.
So there's two aspects to it. We're going through a process right now of reviewing the building code. Ontario's building code really hasn't had a fulsome review in almost 60 years. Since it was first put in. There have been additions that have been made to it that have had some effect on some municipalities. Other municipalities, Douro-Dummer is not one of them, but other municipalities across Ontario, there are 444 of them, have decided that they were going to pass bylaws that would add effectively to the building code. And when I was talking about that, I was talking with relation to the cost of housing. I'm of the belief, and I am firmly of the belief, that government's job is to regulate to the point of integrity, but not to the point of interference. The building code is there to establish the minimums for safe building. In my opinion, the building code should never be used for other things. And I'll give a very specific example. I have been lobbied for the entire 8 years that I have been the MPP to include electric vehicle charging devices in all new builds. And I won't do that. I understand that it is less expensive to put the infrastructure in when you first build the home. However, I have yet to see where anyone can make the argument that the home construction is safer because someone has put an electric vehicle charger in. And if the building code is about ensuring the safest possible minimum requirement for build, we should not be including things that are politically motivated into something like that. The green standard that I referenced and that others have brought up, there is a line of thought that if we were to replace shingles, just as an example, with a living roof, that over time, that would be a cost savings. It is much more expensive to upfront a living roof rather than doing something with shingles. I get that. But should a living roof be a safety requirement on someone's home? And I cannot find anywhere that says that if I have a living roof, my walls will be sturdier. If I have a living roof on my home, that I'll have less heat loss through the windows, that my floor is not going to move because I'm using 2x8s or 2x10s, whatever the standard may be, if I have a living roof on it. And I come back to then, whenever we do stuff, and this is my guiding principle on it, government is here to regulate to the point of integrity, not interference. And we need to get out of the way of everyday person's lives wherever we can and stop using tools that governments have available to them to force something on someone else. Make it so it's about integrity, not interference.
Thank you very much for that. MPP, if there's anything else that you would like to add?
Just one last thing. I know that there'll be a municipal election this year and that there's a possibility that not everyone will be returning. Not everyone may want to return. As we move forward, and this is more for staff than for council, there will be grant opportunities that come up. If I know that you're applying for a grant before you put the grant application in, I can reach out to the ministry involved and I can say, I have a constituent or I have a municipality that's looking to apply for this type of grant. Can you give me some information on what you're looking for in it? And, you know, preface it. And human nature is that if they believe that it is a priority for me, they're going to score that higher for you. Once the application has been put in, I no longer have that ability because it's called political interference. So my request to staff here at Douro-Dummer is any of the provincial grants that you're thinking about applying for, please give me the heads up before you put the application in, and I will contact the ministry involved to get some feelers and find out what they're looking for, how we could word it. I'll pass that on or back on to you. But the biggest advantage of that is that ministry now knows this is something that is in my sightlines. This is something that I'm unofficially advocating for, and you're likely going to score higher, which is likely going to mean you'll get more money for it. So give me that opportunity then to advocate for you. If we're going to be giving out $1 billion, I want more of it to come to our residents than going to someone else. And anything I can do before the grant application is put in, I will do it because I want you to be as successful as possible as well. So my request is please let me know when you apply before you apply for a grant.
Thank you very much, MPP Smith. Thank you for your advocacy, not just for Douro-Dummer, but for the people within Peterborough County and City. We appreciate always hearing from you and what's going on. I'm looking forward to seeing what does come out of the budget on March 26th. And of all the days to choose to come to Douro-Dummer Township, you choose St. Patrick's Day. So thank you.
You're very welcome.
And yeah, anytime, come on in.
Thank you. And as I leave, I will leave with this note. I'm going home to drink green beer.
Well, you enjoy.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on down our agenda, we have, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, we do. We need a motion to receive. Councillor Watt with thanks, seconded by Councillor Johnston. All in favor? And that motion carries. Okay, moving down to our public comment period, we do have one speaker who has registered, and that's Nadine Alice Maffei. As is always the case, there's 5 minutes to present, and we will listen. I believe you've been given instruction on how to use the microphone, and we've got a clock going here, so the floor is yours.
Good evening. Happy St. Patrick's Day. My name's Nadine, and I'm here tonight to speak to the correspondence put forth to council by another municipality that's going to be affected by the Alto rail. Rideau Lakes Township's mayor put in correspondence with a letter stating their concerns regarding the Alto rail, and I'm going to read just a brief part of their important message. So the Alto high-speed rail is lacking full and meaningful consultation. The high-speed rail will divide communities. There will be a major impact on our roadways for school buses, public transportation, and emergency vehicles, given the many roads closed or closed roadways when fences are erected along this route. This will increase mortality and morbidity as it will take longer to receive timely care. There will be farther time to travel, which will also increase emissions and costs of plowing and road maintenance. Another major concern is that the government proposes to grant Alto, as a crown corporation, the right to 3 methods of property expropriation. Until now, the government itself held the right to a single method of property expropriation. This causes our residents varying degrees of stress, ranging from mental anguish to how it will affect their properties that they will not get full current market value if they decide to sell. Under the new proposed legislation, they would be forced to sell to the Alto Corporation. This is of particular concern to many potentially affected property owners who are in the business of farming and feeding our population. Cost analysis to build the railway in the northern and southern routes has not been done. You can continue reading the rest of their letter on our agenda. I find it unacceptable that our council, mayor, MP, MPP, has been silent about the high-speed Alto rail. Most people don't even know about it. Nothing has been sent out to our community, no paper, no literature. The only way that you can attempt to find any information would be something that was sent out on March 11th and put forth on the township's website. Unless you subscribe to the email or you specifically go to the township's website, you would not get this information. It seems that we have to take care of one another as community members and spread this information amongst ourselves. There's been nothing shared in writing, no talk about it, other than when Mr. Johnson mentioned it at the last council meeting, continuing to urge people to send in their concerns and emails. Our own Liberal MP, Emma Harrison, has not taken a stance on this matter, and Alto has stated that it is the job of the MPs to inform everyone in their riding. So why have we not heard anything from MP Emma Harrison, who campaigned on being a farm girl herself? No letters, no mailing campaigns to inform constituents. Unless you email her directly and you get her generic response back from her office, you don't hear anything. We don't hear anything or see anything from her in Parliament. Alto should have absolutely mailed out flyers to every person that owns property on proposed corridors, but ultimately our MP failed, our MPP failed, and our council has failed us by not providing adequate information sooner. Yes, there was a presentation in December, but only until there was public outcry wanting more information did we find something put on the township's website last week. I've made several posts on social media trying to bring awareness about the high-speed rail and the potential impacts it will have on Douro-Dummer. It seems that the community takes care of one another because our township doesn't do anything to spread the awareness about the high-speed rail. I've questioned why council didn't make this information public. Why hasn't it not been discussed at council meetings? Or why has a town hall or even an Alto information evening been held in our township, considering it is put on the proposed path? It seems that the squeaky wheel gets the grease. I did have MPP Dave Smith comment on one of my social media posts regarding the Alto rail, and much as he said tonight, I get the same thing. My hands are tied. It's federal government. It's not provincial. It's not municipal. Well, our taxes pay for these people's salaries, and if they can't bring the people's voice to the federal government, stating that there's a majority of concern about this high-speed rail going through our community, then why are they here? So I basically got lip service, as I would like to call it, because he told me to go speak to MP Emma Harrison. Again, nothing but a generic email response from her that I know several other people who have corresponded got the same email. Nothing has been put out. So it seems like confidence in our elected officials to speak on our behalf or give us any information regarding this has fallen on deaf ears. It seems that the old saying of my hands are tied keeps coming up over and over.
Isn't I'll ask you to wrap up, or you're just at the 5-minute mark now?
Okay, thank you. So there's been no talk about people losing their homes. Expropriation means that they come in, they take your home, you may not even get market value. You've got wildlife to look after and wonder about what's going to happen with that if we have 10-foot high fences going around this and it's a 60-meter wide railway. There's no mention also about our emergency services and how they're going to be able to have better or affected their response times when this high-speed rail goes through our municipality. So I'd like to propose that our council does a better job of educating and informing the public in this municipality, as well as put forth some effort to find out how this is going to affect not only our roads department, but our emergency department and their response times if this rail goes through our municipality. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Okay, and we will get to that item on the agenda at the appropriate time in the agenda. So we're moving on to item 10.1 under staff reports, and we have the report and capital project status of March of 2026. And council, this report is simply for you to ask any questions of staff as we typically receive that. And if there's no questions, we'll just look for a motion to receive. Councillor Johnson?
So I'll make the motion to receive.
And who would like to second that? Deputy Mayor Nelson, all in favor? That motion carries. On to item 10.2, community grant request, and that is our treasurer, Ms. Grenier. Over to you, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to members of council. This report relates to a 2026 community grant request.
The application is from the Kawartha Lake Stewards Association in the amount of $1,000. The funding would assist with the $5,000 cost to produce and publish the association's, oh my goodness, excuse me, association's annual lake water quality report. Staff have reviewed the application and confirm it meets the requirements of the township's community grants policy. The request is considered eligible under the Public Safety Enhancement Services criteria, and the work supports community well-being through the lake health monitoring and public education. Council may also wish to note that the Kawartha Lake Stewards Association has received annual support from the township in prior years, typically at the $1,000 level. Because this request is over $750, staff are bringing it forward to council for direction. From a financial perspective, the township has approved a community grants budget of $6,000 for 2026. This is the first request being considered this year, and if approved, it would leave a remaining balance of $5,000 for the remainder of 2026. Staff are recommending that council receive the report and provide staff with direction regarding the community grant request. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Grenier. Any questions of staff on the report that's before you? Councillor Watt?
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. Not necessarily a question, but a comment. Yes, the Kawartha Lake Stewart, we've done this for as long as I can remember. It was 750 for a long time, but costs do increase, and we did up to 1,000 here in the past, not too far past, but it is a good project. It is something that's very worthwhile, and I am in full support of going with the $1,000. If you want me to make that a motion right now.
If you'd like to make the motion, I will take that motion to support the request. Does anyone want to second that motion?
Yes,
Councillor
sir.
Johnson?
I'll second the motion.
You'll second that? Any discussion on the motion? Before I ask for the vote, I do want to just speak to it briefly. I agree. They do, the work that they do is great. I did a little bit of research prior to today's meeting, looked at the water quality book that they do publish and their annual report, and spoke to a few of our neighboring municipalities. There's a couple of lakes within their catchment area that are in Douro-Dummer, but their catchment area is quite large by comparison. Into Selwyn, Trent Lake, City Kawartha Lakes. I understand City Kawartha Lakes some time ago had discontinued their funding, which is really unfortunate that they're doing this work for City Kawartha Lakes residents and seasonal residents alike, who enjoy the property and enjoy the lakes, and they're not contributing. Similarly, although Selwyn's at the table, I believe last year, it was either last year or the year before, Selwyn provided $208 by comparison as well. And Trent Lakes came in a little much higher than that at $1,240. And that was just in conversation with my respective colleagues at those tables. So I do support the motion that's on the table, but I think it's important to also recognize, the disparity and lack of support from those other municipalities. And so I would suggest maybe that we, perhaps in the motion or a separate motion, look to, support them, but also ask that they look to our neighboring municipalities for more support in the future ongoing, or that we send a letter to those municipalities, recognizing the value that they offer. I'm not here trying to drum up additional sponsorship funds for them, but I just think it's a little disproportionate, given the catchment area that they represent. Councillor Watt?
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to stay with the original motion first, but to speak on what you were just saying, I'm not really sure it's our place as Douro-Dummer to try and tell other municipalities what to do. I think it's up to the Kawartha Lake Steward Association to go to them individually, like they have come here before, and say, hey, you know what, this is what we're doing for your lakes and rivers and streams and stuff like that in your municipality. This is how important it is. Explain it out to them and let them, the cards fall where they may, but I think it's up to them to push it, not us, to tell you the truth.
Councillor Watt, I agree. That's absolutely fair. And like I say, I support the request, but I think future requests may need to take that into consideration as well. So I'll call for the vote if there's no more discussion on the motion. All in favor? And that motion carries. Okay, we are on to the item 10.3 strategic asset management policy update. Ms. Grenier, that's back over to you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This The purpose of this report is to present the township's updated strategic asset management policy for council approval and to demonstrate how the updated policy meets the requirements of Ontario Regulation 588/17. Council originally approved the township's corporate asset management plan, now renamed the Strategic Asset Management Policy, on June 18th in 2019. Under OReg 588/17, every municipality must have a strategic asset management policy in place and review it if needed, update it, and if needed, update it at least every 5 years. The version 2 that I'm presenting updates the 2019 policy to reflect current township plans and practices, including alignment with the strategic plan for 2023 to 2027, updated land use planning references, a refined public engagement approach, and ongoing continuous improvement activities. Ontario Regulation 588/17 sets out 3 key obligations that this report and policy address. First, required policy content, including alignment to municipal goals, budgeting integration, continuous improvement, climate change considerations, land use planning alignment, governance roles, council involvement, and public engagement opportunities. Next is a mandatory review or update cycle at least once every 5 years. And finally, public availability requirements. So the township must post the current policy and current asset management plan on the township website and provide copies upon request. From an administrative standpoint, the key updates include updated linkages to the township's current strategic direction and planning references, clearer governance and accountability, confirming rules for council, CAO office support, the treasurer as executive lead, and the asset management committee. Confirmed structured council engagement and proportionate approach to the public engagement, and a list of simple, trackable, continuous improvement actions that support the township's annual reporting to council. A compliance matrix is included in the report to show exactly where each OReg 588/17 requirement is addressed within the policy. Following council approval, staff will post the updated strategic asset management policy with the current asset management plan on the township website and provide copies upon request. Approving the updated strategic asset management policy does not create a direct budget expenditure. However, it supports improved life cycle planning and risk-based prioritization, which in turn helps inform future operating and capital budget decisions. So staff are recommending that council receive the report 2026-08 and that council approve the updated strategic asset management policy with revision date of March 17th, 2026, and that council directs staff to post the current policy and current asset management plan on the township website and provide copies upon request to meet the public availability requirements of the regulation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Grenier. Questions from council? Councilor Watt.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. Stacy, if I'm not mistaken, over the past few years, when this first started up, the asset management plans that we got, that also has a direct impact on when we do apply for grants, when we do apply for government money, they turn around and say, well, you haven't done your plan, or you're not doing this, or you did this, and you should know, that type of thing like that. It impacts whether we get money from higher governments. Is that correct?
Through the mayor, the asset management plan impacts how we receive fundings. Not the strategic policy, but the strategic policy is required by the OREG, and we're missing that component, or we needed to update our plan, our policy, in order to match the current requirements.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And I thought that, so in that case, I would make a motion to follow the recommendation.
Hey, I will come back to you on the motion. Councilor Landsman, are you looking to second that motion, or did you have a question?
No, I was going to second it.
You're looking to, okay, before you second that, were there any other questions on the report before I accept that? Okay, so we've got the motion being made by Councilor Watt. Councilor Landsman is prepared to second that motion. Any discussion on the motion that's before you? All in favor? Oh. Okay, a comment from Councilor Deputy Mayor Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Sorry, I won't take up much time. Anyways, good report. And I believe it's the only way to go, and well, we're obligated to do it through the provincial government. So thank you very much for that.
And then I will call the vote. All in favor? And that motion carries. Thank you. We are on to item 10.4, Township Buildings Recycling Collections. CAO Davis, over to you, please.
Through the mayor to members of council, as you recall, at the end of last year, township staff came forward with information regarding changes to the recycling program as it's delivered by Circular Materials Ontario or the Ontario producers. And one of those things that came forward was that as part of the new process, as it was finally handed over to CMO, one of the areas that was no longer going to be collected were what they classified as institutional, commercial, and industrial properties. And as you can well imagine, the township, a number of our properties qualify as ICI properties. We didn't come forward at the same time with a proposal to collect that material. We wanted to let the dust settle from all the changes that were made. And to date, we've been trying to manage that process internally. What I can say is that the amount of time, effort, and energy it takes from internal staff and some of our public works staff to go around and collect this material keeps them from doing the jobs that we want them to be doing. And so we did some review and engaged in some conversations with the current organization that collects these materials, Ontario Group, on behalf of CMO. As they were working within our township jurisdiction, we sought some pricing for them to allow for a program to sort of continue picking up our recycled materials. Sorry. What we did is we looked at it instead of having each individual location be picked up on a regular basis. If you'll recall, recycling used to be picked up weekly. What we were encouraging to do was to sort of centralize some of those areas, recognize that some of our heavier areas that create more recycling, like our community centers, need some regular pickup and dedicated pickups. But other areas, like for example in Douro, the Public Works, Fire Station 2, and the library all share a similar property and can share a similar pickup. Similarly, the Warsaw Public Works and Station 4 also share commonalities and could share a pickup. And so what we've identified is 5 pickup locations throughout the township that would allow for our materials that are generated within our own buildings to be collected and disposed of. And so we have a quote that came forward, and I'm coming forward to council for 2 purposes this afternoon or this evening. One is to ask for you to support us hiring a third-party contractor. We're proposing Mterra Group, but my position really is we need to reestablish this program for some of our township buildings to help with some of our operational requirements. And then secondarily, we encourage using Mterra for the first year, in particular because they are already in the township doing this work. However, if council wants to give us other direction, that's the second half of my request, is that we award the opportunity to do this. The cost for this service, as we've projected, it's $100 per site monthly, or $500 a month. And then there's a minor investment in some of the containers that are required for the collection. The total project cost for the balance of this year would be about $4,500 to $5,000. So we're asking, as this is an unbudgeted expense, I'm in front of council today asking for your support, and we would look to fund this from our general reserve. Happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you. So just before I take questions from council, so just to be clear, Mterra Group is the group that is contracted by CMO that does the recycling pickup with question throughout the township. Is that right?
Through the mayor, back to the mayor. Yes, absolutely. They are a third-party private contractor that's been contracted by CMO. Quite frankly, I think the reality is they used to be contracted by Peterborough County to do this work for a number of years. And when that responsibility shifted to Circular Materials Ontario just continues to honor that contract. At some point, they will reevaluate that contract at the higher level and sort of figure out a way to do the pickup on their own. But currently, that is exactly who's picking up.
Thank you. I saw Councillor Johnston with his hand up.
Yeah, thanks through the chair. Question I have is that you say you need 10 bins, containers. And so we have a few, you say? Number one?
Through the mayor to Councillor Johnson. Yes, so each very similar to what you would see in a traditional residential recycling program. We have to have a bin for fiber materials, i.e. papers, products, etc., and a second bin for containers or metals and plastics. So we have like a blue bin, gray bin sort of scenario. So each site would have to have a bin for each of those. Now, currently, the Warsaw Community Center and the Douro Community Center already have those bins because they were when they were involved in the program when we were regularly picked up. We already had made the investment or we had been provided those bins. So we're looking to buy 6 more to help the other sites.
And then therefore, are these bins going to be locked that the public can't put something other in there besides recycling?
Through the mayor to Councillor Johnson, there's a possibility for locking or I mean, they don't necessarily need to be out in the public. We have public receptacles in various places. So for example, at the hockey arenas or the community centers, those bins aren't just sitting out in the open for anybody to put anything in. They put materials into the other receptacles and then those receptacles are transferred into the recycling bin. So for example, I could, if it was at the town hall here, we wouldn't just leave them out on the street. We would keep them inside the building somewhere and we would manage those materials in-house. So not everyone would need a lock but certainly, our goal would be to create a process by which we can maintain the security of the bin.
Councillor Watt.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. So I know this has been a topic of discussion for quite a while since this came out because that recycling truck's already going past that door to pick the stuff up. So is this going to be a separate vehicle coming to these locations to pick the stuff up? Or can the regular recycling truck that's already going by the door pick it up? And even though we have a separate contract, it doesn't cause double trips out to that same location?
Through the mayor to Councillor Watt, that is why we've approached Interra Group in the first place, because it doesn't involve a separate trip. It involves them stopping. They've come by this building before. They've picked up our materials in the past. We now have to pay for that privilege is really what we're confronted with. And so our proposal is for the first year or the balance of this year, as we go through this process to look at that, we would just use the current services that are provided and then at some point reevaluate what that looks like at the end of the year. But yes, so the straight answer to your question or the short answer to that question, sorry, is that yes, it would be going on to the trucks that are currently already on the roads.
Any other questions from council? Seeing Councillor Johnson.
I was going to make a motion to receive the report and engage them to continue picking the
Okay.
recycling up at that
Before
cost.
you make the motion, I'm going to ask a question as well. So going back to Mterra on this, have you talked to other providers to get pricing on this at all or availability on this? And are there other providers who are able to do this work in the township that you're aware of?
Through the mayor, back to the mayor, there are other providers. I'm not sure how many in the township exist. We have not gone out to full procurement, recognizing that there already is services being provided in the township to our residents. Certainly, if that is the motion or the desire of council, we're happy to reevaluate how we do this and to go out through full procurement if that's what you would like. Realistically, at the end of the day, this is sort of twofold. We'd like council to be aware that we need to engage in how we're going about doing this work. And so we would like support on doing that. How we get to the firm that does that, whether it's through a full procurement or otherwise, we're not fussy.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson, you want to make that motion?
I'll make the motion, but I'm just going to suggest that another individual would have to come on their time. And it would be more work for everybody with a certain different date and that they would probably have. So I, without knowing the cost of somebody else, to me, that's very reasonable. And I don't have a problem with, again, making that motion that we would engage them at that cost for our 5 sites.
So just to be clear, because I know CAO is looking for 2 pieces. So the recommendation is to, first of all, recognize and throw some money in the budget. And then the second part, which isn't part of the recommendation specifically, is to go forward with Antera, because I know verbally he said that. Just want to clarify so we're on the same page. Yep. Does anyone want to second that motion?
Yeah.
I've got Councillor Landsman. It's a race. Any discussion on the motion? I'll speak to it. I support having a third party take care of the work. I know that staff have been trying to figure out how to handle the ICI material, like every other business in Ontario, really. I don't necessarily feel comfortable with just handing the contract over to Mterra for this work. And the reason why I say that, folks, is because Mterra, I get it. They drive by the door. They have picked up from these places before. They're familiar with the properties. But we also know this past, well, since the new year, we've had nothing but trouble with our residents getting their recycling picked up proper. And I've got the calls and the emails. I know we've talked about it, and unfortunately it's not within our jurisdiction. They're not our contractor, they're not our provider. But I don't feel comfortable giving a contract to somebody who based on that experience, is going to get this contract without getting an understanding of whether or not there's other providers who do that. So I support the principle of where we're going with this and needing to get the work done, but I can't support giving the contract straight over to Mterra without discussion with other providers and costing. And maybe it will be more. And I understand that, and we can go back to Mterra, but at this point, I just don't feel comfortable supporting that. So seeing that there's no further discussion on the motion, all in favor? And that motion carries. Okay, on to 10.5 service delivery review, background report and update 1, CAO Davis.
Through the mayor to members of council, this is just an update on the ongoing service delivery review project that we are doing or engaged in with the building and development division of our organization. I think the report frankly speaks, it's pretty straightforward. It generally speaks for itself. It suggests that we are ending phase 1 with background research. We haven't, sorry. Third-party consultant Triton has developed interview questions and a questionnaire which has been released to the public. There's a public page where to get more information. We are working towards 2 public engagement pieces. Certainly, I mean, we have a survey available, or the consultant has a survey available. We're looking to do both public open house as a more relaxed version of engagement, I believe. And then I think there'll also be a public meeting. So there'll be plenty of opportunity for members of the public to participate in this process. We're getting very close to that stage right now. And that's sort of the update. I will say that actually I don't have anything else to say. That's pretty straightforward, but happy to take your question.
All right, any questions from council on this report that's in front of you? Councillor Watt.
Thank you, through Madam Mayor. And there has been discussion through this whole process going on about, public engagement, and you just said there will be plenty of opportunity. I think we kind of, in my mind anyway, we kind of made a promise to a few local contractors here that they would have a one-on-one with them. So I'm kind of hoping that is still the case, and they could still come to the open house and stuff. But I just want to make sure that, that opportunity hopefully will be there, as well as I know council's going to have that opportunity.
Through the mayor back to the member, to Councillor Watt. Absolutely. So certainly there's opportunities to participate in either the public meeting or the public open house. I think also I would encourage every resident who has had experience with and any local organizations that do building within our community, or have had experiences with either the building department, the planning, land use planning department, or economic development services, which I suspect is not as much as the other two areas, to participate in that survey. I also know that the consultant, there have been some people who've been very upfront, asking to have opportunity to speak to the consultant, and certainly, as far as I can tell, the consultant's gonna, is certainly willing to honor those things. One of the things that I didn't mention, um, um, there is a live webpage, and on that webpage, there is a direct email to the consultant that goes directly to them and doesn't come to township staff. And the public are encouraged to go online, fill out send an email to the consultant as a form of engagement. That's one of the ways, if they really want to have their voices heard, they can get right to the consultant. There's direct access, and I can tell you that link has been live for a short-ish period of time, and they have already have reports that they've received. I don't know what they say because it's not my place to know until it's aggregated at the end, but certainly they have had some contact.
Any other questions from council on the report? Seeing nothing, just an observation. I did go into the survey, which is live. There are a number of questions, and I didn't submit the survey, so maybe it would get a different error. But there are a number of questions where it says check one, right? Because it's multiple choice. There are other questions that say, check all that apply, which would infer that you could choose many. But when I look to check one, it does allow me to check multiples. So I would look to try and get that result. And maybe if I hit submit, it would say that I can't and I've chose too many boxes. But typically, for that online survey design, it just doesn't allow you to choose more than one. So I would encourage you to check that. Looking for a motion. Did we get a motion on this? No, we're just doing questions. A motion. Councillor Watt, Deputy Mayor, will second that. Any discussion? All in favor? And that motion carries. Thank you. Okay, moving down to committee minutes and other reports. We can probably deal with all three of these at the same time. Looking for resolution to receive, oh no, we can't do these all three at the same time. We'll do 11.1, which
No.
is a resolution to receive and approve. Councillor Johnston? Seconded by Deputy Mayor Nelson. Any discussion? All in favor? That carries. 11.2 and 11.3 are just motions to receive. Councillor Landsman, seconded by Councillor Watt. Any discussion? All in favor? And that carries. Okay, down to item 12.1, First Douro Sparks request to remove rental fee from the Warsaw Town Hall. Council, what would you like to do with this? Councillor Landsman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As a former Brownie leader many years ago, we didn't have the Sparks, but I know Brownies give young girls much more than is anticipated. They don't just play games, they learn things, and they learn responsibility, and they learn how to be proud of themselves. And I would say congratulations to Dana Keast for starting it up and running it. And I would suggest that perhaps the fee be forgiven.
Okay, and congratulations to you to be involved with Brownies in the past, Councillor Lanson. I, as a young girl, enjoyed Brownies myself, and I think it's a fabulous program. Councillor Landsman, for your motion, are you interested in putting any kind of parameters around that? Because right now the request is just a wide open. So like it's, assuming as I remember from when I was a young Brownie, I didn't do Sparks. It's weekly meetings for basically the school year, if I recall, and year after year after year. So I would suggest with your motion that you look to perhaps put some terms or thoughts around that.
Okay. I don't have the capability of opening my agenda without closing out this. And I don't have her well, I do have her letter somewhere, yes. Sorry.
That's okay.
If
I just-
anybody else has any questions, I'm just reading her letter. Because I think they just would like the rent forgiven. And I don't see a problem with doing that. Waive the rental fee of our meeting place. We have secured a space at the Warsaw Town Hall and are very much looking forward to our first meeting.
Okay. So that's fine. So, but by the motion, I think when you are forgiving it, it would be in perpetuity unless you put some sort of parameters around that.
If you'd like to forgive it for the first year and see how it goes, you can add, I can add that.
Okay. I just think in terms of committing future councils on this kind of stuff as well, it might be. I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, and I'm endeavoring to do that indirectly, and I apologize for that. So I will let you make the motion that you feel comfortable making, and then we'll have a conversation about that.
I would make a motion that the rent be forgiven for the Sparks for the coming year.
Okay. And does
If it ends at the school year, fine.
Okay. Councillor Johnston has his hand up, and then Deputy Mayor. Councillor Johnston seconded it. Deputy Mayor to speak on the motion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a question I have, if there is something that we need the town hall for, is there another space that we could provide? I'm sure there is, that we could probably provide for Sparks if the town hall was needed for something that is that a,
I'm getting a nod from our clerk.
is that something that could be accommodated?
Yep.
Just want to throw that out there. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Watt.
Thank you. Just curious, do we know how many meetings? Is it once a week or is it once a month or is it every, it doesn't really spell out in here how many it is. And does it only go to the end of the school year or is it the whole of 2026?
CEO Davis.
Through the mayor, back to Councillor Watts. So we did a little bit of research on this. I have not talked to the leader from Sparks, but as far as we can tell, I believe the meetings are once a week. And they go until the end of the school, until about the end of June of this year for their first season. So they probably, I suspect that they're starting midway through an annual year for them, but certainly, yes, I can recognize the booking and it takes us to the mid of June.
And CEO, can you speak to what the fees normally would be, please?
Sure. I don't have the actual fee for the rental of the town hall space. So they're looking for the town hall space in Warsaw. What I could tell you is based on that organization being not for profit and community based, the fees that they pay are including taxes, $12.72 per hour. So each meeting is in the neighborhood of I don't know, $38 perhaps and change.
Thank you for that additional information. Okay, so we've got a motion on the floor that's been duly seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Congratulations to the first Douro Sparks starting. All in favor? And that motion carries. Okay, on to item 12.2, the Township of McNabb Braeside, resolution regarding Ontario Heritage Organization Development Grants. What would you like to do with this one, Council? Councillor Watt.
At the moment, I'd like just to make a motion to receive. I did ask some questions on this, and there's, again, in the upcoming provincial budget, there may be some discussion on it, but we can't say right now. So we really can't support what we don't know is going to happen yet. So I'll just receive.
Does anyone want to second that motion? Deputy Mayor Nelson, any discussion on the motion? All in favor? And that motion carries. On to item 12.3, the Township of Rideau Lakes letter regarding the Alto high-speed rail project. Folks, as a matter of procedure, I am going to rescind the chair to Deputy Mayor Nelson because I would like to bring forward a motion on this and speak on this, and I'll ask that the clerk distribute that to council, making sure I didn't give you my copy with my written notes on it. No, we're good. Over to you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm happy to take the chair. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. So we do have this letter with the Township of Rideau Lakes regarding Alto high-speed rail. I would simply like to make a motion to receive this particular motion. But I would also like to propose another motion, Deputy Mayor. So I guess we'll just deal with the motion to receive the correspondence.
Sure. Sounds good. Okay. And Councillor Johnson.
Okay. Are you receiving and supporting or just receiving?
Sorry, yes, that's clear. So we have the mayor has made a motion and Councillor Watt has seconded the motion. Is there any more questions on that? Seeing none, we'll move on with
You can vote on it.
yes, we'll vote on that. All in favor? Motion carried. Now, back to the mayor for back to the mayor for to carry on.
Thank you. Council, I appreciate your support on Bill C-15. As I said, I've distributed a motion in writing. Councillor Landsman, I apologize that you don't have a paper copy in front of you, given the fact that you're on Zoom. I will read out the motion, and if somebody seconds it, Deputy Mayor, I'll speak to it as well. And forgive me because it's a little bit verbose, but it's an important issue. Whereas the proposed Alto high-speed rail project has been initiated by the Government of Canada and identified as a project of national significance as part of a nation-building strategy. And whereas Council recognizes that major national transportation infrastructure projects may provide economic and mobility benefits at a regional and national level. And whereas the project was not initiated by the Township of Douro-Dummer or requested by its residents, yet the municipality may experience significant impacts depending on the final corridor alignment. And whereas Alto has stated that municipal leaders play an important role in representing the concerns of their residents throughout the planning process. And whereas the township has invited the local member of parliament to attend and hear directly from residents regarding concerns related to the proposed corridor, and that invitation has not been accepted. And whereas residents have raised concerns regarding potential impacts, including the severance of township roads, increased municipal infrastructure costs, impacts to farms and emergency response times, potential land expropriation, including the potential impacts on private property rights, and disruption to rural land use. And whereas a significant portion of the preliminary corridor through Douro-Dummer contains environmentally sensitive lands, including areas designated within provincial natural heritage system, provincially significant wetlands, high vulnerable aquifers, important white-tailed deer wintering habits and habitats, supporting rare, threatened, and endangered species. And whereas roading high-speed rail infrastructure within or adjacent to existing transportation corridors may significantly reduce impacts on rural communities, agricultural lands, municipal infrastructure, natural drainage systems, wildlife habitat, and recreational trail networks. Therefore, be it resolved, getting to the conclusion, that the Township of Douro-Dummer express its significant concerns regarding any proposed Alto high-speed rail alignment through the municipality. And further, that council indicate it does not support an alignment through Douro-Dummer at this time unless the Government of Canada, Alto, and local member of parliament provide clear assurances that the concerns raised by residents and council will be addressed. And further, that council strongly encourage the Government of Canada and Alto to prioritize routing high-speed rail infrastructure within or adjacent to existing transportation corridors, including provincial highways, wherever possible, in order to minimize impacts on rural municipalities. And further, that the township request confirmation that any costs associated with road realignments, crossings, infrastructure modifications, emergency access requirements, or other municipal impacts resulting from the project will be fully borne by the Government of Canada and or the project proponent and not downloaded onto the municipality or its taxpayers. And further, that this resolution be forwarded to the Prime Minister of Canada, the Minister of Transportation, and Member of Parliament and Alto. And Chair, I will, as I said, speak to that should a member of council choose to second that motion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And we have a question or a
No,
second?
I will second it.
Okay, thank you. We have a seconder. Do we have any questions on the motion? Mr. Councillor Johnson.
Through the chair, on that, you have there that second last statement. You were saying about any associated cost for either for the municipality, but we also identify individual, whether it be take land or taking it something away individual people. Should we record that? Should that be in there, or is it strictly look municipality?
Go ahead, Madam Mayor.
Chair, through you, the intent of the motion is really to look at the impacts as it relates to our municipal concerns. I understand, and I do reference in the motion about private property rights and potential land expropriation. And in the motion, I'm talking about how we want one of the conclusions that clear assurances that the concerns raised by residents and council will be addressed. So that in my intent in the motion would be included there. If I can speak to the motion now and provide a little bit more context, perhaps, Deputy or Chair?
Sure, that's fine. Go ahead.
So I've got so much to say on this. How much time do we have? I'll try and be concise. We first heard of this project in the fall. I think it was Alto was at a conference and spoke about it kind of as it gained a little bit of momentum and traction at the time. And of course, we did have Alto come to county council and also come to this chamber's committee of the whole meeting. And at the time, it did seem exciting in the early stages. But as time has gone on, and over the last 6 weeks, having attended various sessions, having heard from residents, spoke with in speaking with our colleagues, our neighbors within Peterborough County as well, it's become less exciting, and there are concerns that have been raised as it relates to the public consultation. More recently, in the last early March, in the last several days, I've been in touch with the MP's office to ask about whether or not she is listening to our residents. And actually, I extended an invitation to her to come to the township, offering one of our facilities for free to hear from residents in our community. During our call, or back and forth led to a call just as recent as Saturday, we spoke on the phone, and I reiterated that despite what maybe her constituents feel in the macro within the riding, 160,000 people, it doesn't necessarily reflect the 7,500 voices in Douro-Dummer Township. I was hoping that the MP would take me up on the offer for an invitation to come to the township, but she chose not to do that. In absence of that, I asked her, what am I supposed to say to our residents in the community? And she suggested some things that I could say, and I don't believe I speak on behalf of the MP, just like I wouldn't want the MP to speak on my behalf. So I asked her to put something in writing, and I believe the clerk has distributed that to council as well. I literally just received this today, this morning. Otherwise, I would have tried to get it on the agenda in advance. Dated March 17th. I'll read it aloud for those who don't have a hard copy in front of them. Dear mayors, I should say after our conversation, she did communicate that she thought it was a good idea to communicate a statement to her municipal leaders, knowing full well that this is an issue that's ending up in our chambers. And she was going to distribute to all the mayors in her riding. I understand that many of you are hearing from our constituents about the Alto high-speed rail network. While I'm sure you are already sharing this, I did note that the up-to-date and accurate information about the project is available at altotrain.ca, including frequently asked questions and answers. Alto also recently decided to extend the online public consultation period until April 24th, and I encourage anyone with feedback to visit their online consultation platform and she cites the URL, which I won't read aloud. Additionally, I have requested that Alto consider holding another in-person consultation event in Norwood, and I will share that information about that should it move ahead. Lastly, please know that all of our constituents are very welcome to share their thoughts with me in my office directly. I can be reached at emma.harrison@parle.gc.ca or by phone at 705-745-2258. Please do not hesitate to reach out to me if you would like to discuss this further. So I'm bringing this motion forward today because in absence of a voice, and as our MPP said, you know, we don't have a say, but we do have a say. It's happening in our backyard, and in absence of a voice in our backyard from our MP, I feel that we have no choice but to talk about it. And you know, I've heard that there's been, you know, concern as was expressed by our delegate earlier today that, you know, council isn't doing enough and we aren't talking about it. And the reality is it's just personally, it's taken me time to get the information that we need to be able to bring forward. We as a municipality don't have the budget, the time, the staff resources to knock on everybody's door in the corridor in Douro-Dummer Township to make them aware of the project. We can't send them mailers. I mean, the cost and time to do that. And people have been asking me if why we're not doing that. You know, last week before we knew the extension was even happening, it's like we can't even process that with the staff support. And this is not a project that we asked for. It's not a project that we wanted to put on our work plans and in our budgets. So every moment of time that we spend talking about this important project that we did not ask for, it's taking away from the work that our staff are trying to do to take care of the roads, to maintain the potholes, to, you know, work on all the other initiatives that we've directed them to do. So, I'm personally at a point where I feel that we do need to send a statement back as the motion is written, and share our thoughts until we can get those concerns met. So, that's why I'm bringing this forward today. I hope that council will support this, but it's been a frustrating process for me as mayor in our community, as I'm sure I'm not going to speak for each of you at council, but for myself to be in a position where a project is coming to us that, you know, normally we apply for stuff, right? And normally they like, please help us, please come, but we haven't said please come. So this is something that we do need to speak on, and I wanted to take the right time to do that so that we could get it on the agenda. And I did make an announcement about the public consultation period at one of our council meetings as well. But we're doing what we can with the resources that we have available as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Is there any other, Councillor Watt?
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Watson. That was very well put together, and I'm fully in support of it. I'm certainly glad you had in the portion there about recouping what we're going to lose. And
Mhm.
there's things that, you know, you talk to people. Somebody just said to me the other day, okay, and just hypothetically, if I've got a 100-acre farm, somebody takes 25 acres off that farm to go across because it's a long 100 kind of that. Now all of a sudden that property belongs to the government or to the Alto rail system, which is the government, and they don't have to pay tax on it. So we lose tax revenue on that 25 acres of land, and anything along our whole township that gets taken away or bought, whatever, it's never ending. So I'm glad that you have a thing in there for our cost recovery. I would do much appreciate that.
Anybody else before I call the vote? Councillor Lansman.
Yes, through you to the mayor, or to the mayor, I echo everything Tom said, because that's an excellent, excellent report or motion. And I thank you for it.
Seeing nothing else, will we call for the vote? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. I'll hand the chair back over to the mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. In all of my shuffling of papers, I think I stole some of the CAO's paperwork. Sorry. Okay, moving on to item 12, well, what we're calling 12.4 now, Deputy Mayor. This was yours, from the consent agenda. The stop arm, I wrote stop arm correspondence, but I don't know if that's what it actually was called. As I shift through my papers. Deputy Mayor.
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you. I wanted to bring this up, but I think maybe it might have already been brought up before, but I did want to support our warden on this. And that is on the arm for the buses. And I believe, if I'm not wrong, I can ask Martina maybe. Martina was, I believe this was already supported in a previous council meeting, and unfortunately I was not at it, but I believe I was on holidays, but that's why I wanted to bring it forward, was just, I believe so if we've already supported it, we can move on if that's the case.
Madam Clerk.
Madam Mayor to Deputy Mayor, that's correct. You were away when this piece of correspondence came. It actually came from a different municipality, but it's the same wording. And that was on February 17th. And council did receive and support it. And we have sent the required letters to show our support for the motion and in this matter.
Through the mayor, thank you very much, Martina, and I will resolve to say we've already done the work. So thank you.
So just a motion to receive then.
Just a motion to receive, yes.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Watt. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? And that motion carries. Thank you. On to item number 13. We've got bylaws. 2026-11 being the bylaw to authorize a contract with, is it GER Construction? And this is for the Douro Community Center rink slab replacement. Council, just a motion on that, please. Councillor Watt made the motion, seconded by Councillor Landsman. Any discussion? All in favor? That motion carries. 2026, or pardon me, item 13.2, which is bylaw 2026-12. And this is to delegate authority to the Assessment Review Board to exercise certain powers and functions of council. This was as it relates to the policy that Ms. Grenier brought forward at our last meeting to have a tribunal arrangement for people to ask for relief, tax relief in extreme circumstances, council. Deputy Mayor, you're nodding. Is that a motion? Thank you. Councillor Johnson will second that. All in favor? And that motion carries. We have no reports derived from previous notices of motion, but we do have a notice of motion. Again, I will rescind the chair because it was my motion from the last meeting. Deputy Mayor, I'll let you take it from here.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Go ahead with your motion.
Thank you, Chair. I don't believe I need to read the motion out again in full, unless the clerk tells me procedurally I need to, or if council wishes that for me to do so. But I will move the motion formally that we look to have at our next regular council meeting, which would be April 7th, a detailed written action plan to complete the audit. With clear milestones and assigned responsibilities, and that progress updates be provided to council. So I'll make that motion, and I think, Councilor Watt, you were going to second that still?
Okay, we have a seconder, Councillor Watt. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor of the motion? Carried. Thank you. I'll turn the chair back over to the mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. And under notices of motion, now that that one is taken care of, are there any other notices of motion? Deputy Mayor.
I've been doing a lot of talking here, but anyways, yes, Madam Mayor, I have a notice of motion I'd like to bring forward and have this dealt with. I believe very strongly in this motion. I'll read it out. I had it prepared here. Whereas the Township of Douro-Dummer plan states that our core values are physical responsibility, transparency, service excellence, and environment. And whereas the township aims to use its resources in an efficient and effective manner to deliver services to the community. And whereas correspondence and requests from anonymous sources require township resources to respond without confirmation that they are from a real person. And whereas tribunals, Ontario, and various courts do not accept anonymous complaints or correspondence. And whereas council members must abide by the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act and state whether they have direct or indirect pecuniary interest in a matter before council. Whereas the Township of Douro-Dummer procedural bylaw section 6.2, states that all written submissions shall be signed or contain a digital signature by a person who wishes to make a comment. Be it resolved that the council directs staff to prepare an amendment to section 6.2 of the procedural bylaw to reject all anonymous correspondence, and further that all requests for service or correspondence to staff and council must be requested or submitted by a named persons.
Okay, thank you for that, Deputy Mayor. Do we need a seconder for that to go on the agenda, or that just sits on next agenda?
Through you, Madam Mayor. The process now is it has been read out in this meeting. It will now appear on the next agenda. So that's the first meeting in April. It will be potentially seconded at that meeting. If it is seconded, then the last meeting in April, it will be debated. If it's not seconded at the first meeting in April, it will go to the third meeting to see if there's a seconder, at which point it would be at the fourth meeting, it would be debated.
That's it. Right?
My mic just stopped working for a second. Sorry. Thank you. So no discussion on that. It will be brought forward for the next meeting. Are there any other notices of motion? Okay, so now we are on to announcements. Council, any announcements? I've got a few to make. Councillor Watt.
I have a couple, please. Number one, this past Saturday, the Warsaw District Lions Club put on a curling bonspiel, and it was a fantastic turnout. It was a great day. Everyone gets a prize. Everyone has some good food and good camaraderie. It was really, really great, well supported, and I want to say congratulations to the Lions Club for that. Secondly, also with the Warsaw District Lions Club, they will be holding a roast beef dinner and auction upstairs here on Saturday, April 25th, starting at 6 p.m. It's $30 per ticket. And again, it's always a good time, really, really good meal, and lots of auction prizes. So I really like to see a full house. It usually is close to 100 people, Donna. What? You said 100. That's it. Okay, so the first 100 get tickets. So, yep. All right. So yeah. If you really want to go, sign up quickly, and you can see Donna or Ray. That's all. Oh, and if anyone would like to donate anything for the auction prizes, by all means, again, the Lions would be grateful for them all. Thank you.
Hottest ticket in town. Any other announcements to make? Okay, I do have a couple. April 11th, Kids Against Hunger Canada is doing their 1 million meals packing event at Rima Christian School. I'm hoping to be there and put in a team. I actually challenged council to join me at that event to support their long-term goal of packing 1 million meals, of which 500,000 are within Canada, 500,000 are overseas. They've already packed 926,000 meals and change, and that's on April 11th at Rima. Also, I did mention this earlier about the extension through MP Harrison's correspondence, but Alto has extended their public consultation period until April 24th, from March 30th, I believe it was, or 31st. And lastly, on April 4th, that's Easter weekend, and we will be hopefully holding the annual Easter egg hunt at the North Park, Douro North Park at 11 o'clock in the morning, weather pending. And just stay tuned to social media and the township website for that event to get the details, as we hopefully don't have snow by April 4th. Okay, we have, sorry?
One more.
Oh, Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, and I'd also like to wish a happy Easter on behalf of our council and our township to everybody.
Thank you very much. We have no closed session, just the confirming bylaw, folks. Councillor Landsman, because I see you moving, that's a motion for the confirming bylaw, seconded by Councillor Johnston. All in favor? That motion carries. Our next meeting is on April 7th, right after Easter. And a motion to adjourn, please. Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Watt. All in favor? And that motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.